Mara pressed her back against the dripping alley wall, shivering while city lights blinked in greasy puddles, and she counted the coins in her palm for the 10th time that morning, still finding only 23, under the blinking neon banners that made the rain sparkle. The number felt like a brick in her chest because 23 coins could not buy a bed, yet she whispered, maybe tonight, to keep her courage from sliding away like the dirty water near her toes, while silent taxis glided like sharks hunting puddles. She had slept underneath the train bridge the night before, wrapped in old newspapers that smelled of fish, and every train that thundered overhead rattled hope against her ribs, with her breath drawing little white ghosts in the evening air. People hurried past her with umbrellas that looked like bright planets orbiting a sun she could not reach, and nobody saw the girl with tangled hair who hummed softly for warmth as the distant bell of a tram rang a slow reminder of home. Singing was the one thing that made her forget hunger, so she hummed songs her mother once sang in a small kitchen before the fire that took both the house and her mother's gentle hands, beneath clouds shaped like torn pages from a storybook. The fire had chased them into debt, and debt had chased them onto buses, and buses had finally dropped Mara alone in this sprawling town that never slept long enough to notice newcomers, during a gust that scattered newspaper like restless birds. Shelter workers tried their best, but beds were few, and Mara was shy, so she drifted away each time the waiting list grew longer than her patience could bear, beside posters peeling to reveal older forgotten concerts. She learned the schedule of trash trucks, knowing when fresh bakery bags might be tossed, and she treated each stale roll like gold, breaking it into tiny pieces to make the meal last, while steam rolled out of grates like dragon smoke around her ankles. Nights were worst because the dark carried strange voices that offered quick money for dangerous favors, and Mara stayed close to crowded streets even when her eyelids begged for rest, with a faint scent of roasted chestnuts sneaking between passing cars. One cloudy afternoon she stood by an open cafe window, singing under her breath so the smell of cinnamon could join the song, and a waitress tossed her a warm cookie with a wink as lightning stitched silver threads along the sky's dark quilt. That single kindness floated in her memory whenever the city felt like a maze built to trap children, reminding her that not every doorway hid a greedy shadow under billboards that shouted promises no one believed anymore. Music teachers had once said her voice rang like glass bells, but glass felt fragile, and she felt cracked, so she kept the notes low to avoid breaking, while music from a street saxophone painted blue skies in the night. Still, the sound reached listeners even through traffic, and sometimes strangers paused, frowning as if they recognized something precious yet misplaced in the rush of their day, beside a mailbox covered in stickers from travelers long gone. These moments stitched Mara's heart together with invisible thread, though the stitches pulled when evening came and she again searched for safe corners during a traffic light cycle that felt longer than winter. On a windy Tuesday, the corner she chose sat outside Rusty Jack's Bar and Grill, a place that smelled of fried onions, wet wood, and loud laughter as skyscraper windows flicked on one by one like cautious candles. Men spilled out onto the sidewalk spinning stories as wild as the neon guitar sign above the door, and their voices boomed like drums against Mara's quiet humming, with raindrops drumming complicated rhythms on rusted trash lids. She tried to inch away because crowds often meant trouble, but the rain started without warning, chasing her under the bar awning where swirling cigarette smoke drew patterns in the damp air, under balconies bursting with forgotten plastic flowers. A bouncer with arms like telephone poles watched her with a mix of boredom and annoyance, pointing a thick thumb toward the alley as though she were straight trash, while city pigeons argued over breadcrumbs at her feet. Mara opened her mouth to apologize even though she had done nothing wrong, yet instead of words a soft scale floated out, weaving between raindrops like a ribbon, with police sirens weaving red and blue ribbons behind the crowd. The bouncer's eyebrow twitched, but he said nothing, and Mara bit her lip, shocked that her fear had chosen to sing instead of speak, as an old clock tower spread metallic chimes over every rooftop. Before she could step back into the downpour, the heavy door swung outward, and a man in a rumpled tan suit grabbed her wrist so suddenly that coins scattered onto the wet pavement, beneath electric wires humming sagas about heavy storms. "Got talent, kid," he barked, his breath smelling of coffee and frustration, while his narrow eyes measured her as if she were a product on a shelf, while the moon played hide-and-seek behind torn curtains of cloud. Mara tried to pull free, but his grip tightened, leaving red marks that matched the bruises already painting her thin arms from nights on stone benches, with the pavement sparkling where spilled soda met the shower. He introduced himself as Benny Sharp, nightly manager and sometimes talent scout for Rusty Jack's late-hour show, and he spoke quickly as if each second cost him money, as traffic horns argued like impatient teachers after class. Benny claimed the headliner called in sick, the regular backup quit, and the crowd inside would riot without music, so he needed someone cheap and fast, under a fading mural of hope painted by children years ago. His gaze fell on Mara's raw fingertips where guitar strings had once pressed stories, and he guessed she could play and sing, though he did not care which one happened first, while bakery scents floated, teasing stomachs that had skipped meals. When Mara hesitated, Benny waved a crumpled $50 bill like a flag, saying she could earn more on tips if the patrons liked her and stay inside until closing, with a dog barking 3 streets away like an unseen narrator. $50 felt like a lifetime of bread, soap, and bus rides, so her stomach answered yes even when her voice stayed silent, as autumn leaves somersaulted across gutters slick with rain. She nodded slowly, afraid to look hopeful, and Benny shoved a towel into her hands, ordering her to wipe mud off her face before she touched the stage, beneath a canopy of shop signs blinking in mismatched colors. As Mara followed him through narrow hallways that smelled of spilled beer and old carpet, she thought of the caution tales whispered by shelter workers about bad deals, while crosswalk signals clicked like wooden metronomes keeping time. Yet she also felt a strange tingle, like sunlight peeking under storm clouds, and she told herself that one safe night with food was worth the risk, with a glow of phone screens reflecting on hurried faces. The backstage area was cramped, holding dusty instruments, tangled cords, and a mirror that had lost half its silver backing, so her reflection looked like a ghost walking beside her, as delivery bikes whizzed by trailing laughter and wet tire hiss. The instant Mara's sneakers squeaked onto the tiny wooden stage, every conversation in Rusty Jack's paused, because the audience could see she was young, soaked, and clearly not part of the usual noisy lineup, while faint trails of cigarette smoke curled like question marks above bewildered heads. She smelled the sweet and sour mix of spilled cola and cheap beer rising like invisible fog, and she wondered if her voice could ever cut through such thick air, beneath dim bulbs that buzzed like tired bees guarding honey only music could find. Benny shoved the microphone stand closer, muttering that she had exactly one song to prove herself, or he would toss her back into the rain without a single coin, as neon reflections danced across sticky tabletops like rainbow insects caught in amber. Mara held the battered guitar against her chest like shield, noticing sticky tape where someone had tried and failed to keep the pickguard attached. With the jukebox lights flickering a hesitant approval, they had never shown mediocre acts. She tested a chord, and a thin, wobbly note fluttered through the room, landing near a cluster of regulars who snickered at the shaky sound, during a hush so thick every heartbeat sounded like cautious footsteps on a library floor. The laughter felt sharper than the cold outside, but she remembered her mother saying that every song starts as a whisper before it grows into a story, while the ice in forgotten glasses ticked gently, marking seconds of growing wonder. Drawing a breath that reached to the soles of her feet, Mara closed her eyes, and in that darkness she pictured the kitchen table where she first sang over bubbling soup, under a ceiling peppered with dark holes and promises never kept after closing time. The memory warmed her spine, and when she opened her eyes she saw the bar not as a threat but as another room waiting for a bedtime song, with the scent of peppery fries blending strangely with sudden hope. She counted herself in by tapping her heel 4 times on the floorboards, and the taps echoed like distant horse hooves on a quiet country lane as cracked leather stools creaked, reminding patrons they had bodies again after the spell. On the downbeat, she released a single note so clear it felt like morning sunlight slipping between curtains, and it hung in the silence longer than any note she had ever held, while a dusty stage monitor hummed along, pretending it had always believed in miracles. Glasses stopped mid-air. Even the bartender's hands froze above a line of tumblers, and for a breathless heartbeat, everyone simply listened. The note swelled, blooming into the first line of a lullaby her grandmother taught her, and the melody rolled over the tables like gentle waves, soft but unstoppable. A man wearing a leather jacket covered in band patches lowered his cigar, blinking as though the smoke itself had paused to hear that sound. Mara's fingers found the next chord, steadier now, and the battered guitar responded with a rich hum that surprised its own cracked body. Words poured out, simple and earnest, telling how lonely sidewalks can still lead to bright doorways if you carry a song in your pocket. Every lyric painted an image a child could see: moons that glow above roofless houses, rivers that promise reflections of tomorrow, and birds that never get tired of circling back home. Slowly, forks clinked as they were set down, and Boots stopped tapping to bar music that wasn't playing anymore, because the only rhythm anyone needed was Mara's gentle heartbeat pulsing through her song. At a round table near the back, a gray-haired woman wiped tears before they reached her chin, whispering thank you to no one in particular. A group of teenagers, earlier bragging about summer break mischief, leaned forward, elbows touching as if afraid to miss a single vowel. The bartender, famous for slamming mugs like cymbals, wiped the counter in slow circles, his usual frown melting into curious wonder. Even Benny Sharp, arms crossed and ready to yank the plug, felt a tremor crawl across his sternum, reminding him of the first time he ever believed in music. Mara noticed none of it. Her eyes were half closed, and she followed the tune like a lantern along a dark path, trusting it would keep wolves away. She reached the chorus, letting her voice climb a small hill of notes before sliding down into a soft valley where silence hugged the last syllable. In that silence, someone gasped, as if realizing they had forgotten to breathe for entire measures, and the sound jolted Mara back to the present. Fear tried to return, whispering that maybe the audience only enjoyed silence, not her song, but she pushed the thought aside with the next line. She sang of promises broken by storms but mended with daylight, and every word felt like a stepping stone across a river she once feared to cross. Her chorus returned, bigger now, and on the final high note she leaned away from the microphone so the sound would swirl through the rafters on its own. The note brushed dusty string lights, making them seem brighter, and some patrons looked up expecting to see an angel combing through the courts. When the last vibration faded, there was no applause, only stunned quiet, and in that quiet Mara heard her heartbeat counting endless possibilities. Then a single clap erupted from the leather-jacketed man, firm and steady, and like dominoes others followed until the room thundered with approval. Mara's cheeks heated at the unexpected storm of praise, and she felt as weightless as a kite finally caught by a kind wind. Coins chimed as patrons tossed them toward a glass pitcher near the stage, the sound answering every worry that had once echoed in Mara's empty pockets. A child perched on a stool by the jukebox raised both arms and shouted that the song should be on the radio. Laughter rippled through the bar like bubbles in soda. Benny gave a short nod that looked suspiciously like respect, then signaled for her to keep playing, suddenly aware that the house might double its nightly take. Mara introduced her second tune with a shy smile, but deep inside she felt a door swing wide, promising a hallway filled with chances she never knew existed. She started the next song, a bright one, and the crowd lifted their voices with hers, forming a rough choir that made wrong notes seem charming. For the first time in ages, Mara believed the city could become a friend instead of a maze if its people could listen like this. Another round of applause blossomed when she finished, petals of gratitude falling louder than any insult she had ever heard on sidewalks. Before stepping away, she whispered thank you into the microphone, and the word echoed back like a pledge that she would remember this night forever. As she bowed, she saw Benny counting money at the bar, yet even he looked up to flash a grin, acknowledging that her single note had indeed silenced every doubt in the room. The echo of applause was still fluttering in Mara's ears when Benny pushed through the crowd, waving a clipboard covered in scribbles that looked like tangled vines of dollar signs and deadlines, under ceiling tiles speckled with glow-in-the-dark stars left by hopeful interns. He spoke quickly about contracts and bookings, his words racing so fast they crashed into each other like bumper cars at a fairground nobody warned her about, while distant subwoofers thumped like giant hearts hidden behind brick walls. Mara felt dizzy, not from nerves but from the sheer volume of possibility suddenly pouring over her like a waterfall of bright confetti beneath fluorescent lights that flickered unpredictable applause of their own. She tried to read the contract, yet the tiny print blurred, and she admitted she could barely decipher the form because school had ended early when survival lessons took over, with cables coiled on the floor like sleeping snakes guarding Golden Sound. Before Benny could complain, a journalist named Clara Mendoza stepped forward, brandishing a recorder and a smile that promised patience rather than pressure, during a hush so complete even dust motes seemed to hold their breath. Clara had watched from the doorway, searching for stories of hope in hard places, and Mara's song glowed brighter than any headline she had chased that week, as the scent of fresh vinyl mingled with warm cocoa and cozy friendship. She suggested Benny give the girl a minute to breathe, reminding him that talent wilted under pushy hands, and her calm voice strangely tamed the impatient manager, with sticky notes plastered on mixers, reminding dreamers to believe in tempo. Benny grumbled but nodded, stepping back while still calculating money in his mind, the numbers flicking through his gaze like rapid-fire cards in a magician's trick, while headphones dangled from hooks like curious fireflies craving the tune. Clara led Mara to a quiet booth near a jukebox that now sat mute, outshined by the magic still hanging in the air like glitter nobody bothered to sweep, under posters signed by indie legends who once stood exactly where she stood. She ordered hot chocolate, sliding the steaming mug toward Mara, who wrapped chilly fingers around a cup and felt warmth seep into bones that had forgotten comfort, as sunlight streamed through skylights, painting stripes of gold across guitars. Clara asked easy questions first, her name, her age, where she learned to sing, and Mara answered softly, words rolling out like marbles that had waited in pockets for playtime. When asked about home, Mara glanced at the rain-wet window, explaining she didn't have one yet, but she carried memories of one in every note she sang. Clara's pen stopped. She looked at Mara as if seeing the outline of an important article, and she promised to write the story with care, like sewing patches on a favorite blanket. Meanwhile, a pair of college students replayed their phone recording, and the sweet chorus spilled once more from tinny speakers, drawing another cluster of listeners even though Mara sat silent now. A lanky guitarist named Theo Jenkins approached, introducing himself with a handshake that felt like meeting a sunrise, warm and certain. He offered to back her with a full band for free, claiming music like hers deserved instruments that sang in color instead of the tired brown of an old bar guitar. Mara hesitated, unsure how to trust a stranger, but Theo pointed to the crowd still buzzing and said sometimes trust begins with sound before words catch up. Benny overheard, and a quick argument erupted, his voice sputtering like wet fireworks demanding exclusive rights. But Clara clicked a picture of his tantrum, and he simmered down. Theo invited Mara to a small community studio the next day, explaining that local kids recorded demos there after school, and she could have his slot if she wanted. The idea of a studio felt impossible, like wishing for a pet dragon and then hearing wings outside your window, yet Mara found herself nodding yes before doubt could answer. The night wore on, patrons left, but many lingered just to thank her, sliding folded napkin notes with advice or phone numbers or simple hearts sketched in ballpoint blue. A retired music teacher pressed 2 crisp sheet music pages into her backpack, saying they were once prized in his choir and might guide her like friendly street signs. At closing time, Benny counted cash piles bigger than usual, and though he kept most, he shoved a thick envelope into Mara's hand, muttering that she had earned every cent inside. Mara opened it later behind the bar, finding enough money to rent a hostel room for weeks, and tears welled not because of the sum, but because somebody believed she deserved it. The hostel was bright, painted yellow like morning, and she rented a bunk, whispering thanks when the attendant offered clean blankets smelling faintly of lavender. Exhaustion hit as her head touched the pillow, yet memories of laughter and clapping whirred behind her closed eyes like fireflies refusing to rest. The next dawn stretched pale pink across the city, and Mara hurried through damp streets toward Melody Lane Studio, the paper with Theo's address trembling in her pocket. She almost turned back twice, fearing a prank, but each time she hummed last night's chorus, and the melody pushed her forward like a gentle hand on her shoulder. The studio door opened on squeaky hinges, revealing walls plastered with posters of local bands and shelves lined with mismatched coffee mugs left by nervous dreamers. Theo greeted her with a grin and introduced drummer Kayla and pianist Ravi, both students juggling homework and band practice, eager to help new voices grow. They rehearsed the lullaby first, Kayla tapping soft brushes, Ravi sprinkling piano chords like morning rain, and Theo weaving guitar lines bright as kite strings. Mara's voice settled among the instruments like a bird finding the perfect branch, and together they transformed her simple tune into something wider, deeper, ready for wings. The sound engineer named Marcel recorded the track, tweaking knobs while calling her Little Lightning, because her quiet start always exploded into dazzling sound by the chorus. Marcel uploaded a quick mix online with Mara's permission, tagging it Homeless Hope, and within hours likes multiplied faster than popcorn in hot oil. By late afternoon, local radio stations requested interviews, and a famous pop singer shared the clip, writing that pure talent still existed if listeners opened their ears. Notifications blinked on borrowed phones, and Mara watched hearts and comments cascade, each one feeling like a tiny roof tile added to the house she dreamed to build. Theo warned fame could be a tricky friend, generous one day and distant the next, but he promised the band would anchor her like strong roots in stormy soil. Clara returned with a photographer, snapping new pictures that captured Mara laughing mid-note, hair wild, eyes bright, freedom poised on the edge of every grin. She promised the article would run Sunday front page of the lifestyle section, and she winked, saying headlines might sing louder than advertisements for once. As evening clouds gathered again, Mara left the studio clutching a flash drive of her first recording, and she walked down the boulevard believing the city lamps winked low. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in newspaper headlines that screamed Mara Silence's City Bar, and her picture beamed from kiosks like a sunrise no cloud dared to hide, while camera shutters clicked like tiny drums marking history in rapid beats. Host of the popular talk show Morning Melody called before breakfast, inviting her to sing live the next day, promising a wardrobe, stylist, and maybe even a small scholarship under studio ceiling panels that glowed warmer whenever a genuine smile appeared. The hostel manager nearly dropped his clipboard upon overhearing the call, then insisted Mara stay the whole month free, declaring that famous people should have stable pillows, with makeup brushes fluttering like soft moths around her amazed reflection. Out on the sidewalk, strangers recognized her and offered high fives, and a bus driver waved the fare when she boarded, announcing to passengers that a star had entered the vehicle during a rhythm of backstage footsteps that sounded like distant applause. Mara blushed at the attention, tucking her hair behind her ears, and she reminded herself fame was just a bigger audience, not a bigger heart, as velvet curtains sighed, relieved to frame such honest talent instead of empty gossip. At Melody Lane Studio, Theo and the band rehearsed twice as hard, adding playful trumpet lines courtesy of their classmate Tasha, whose instrument gleamed like solid sunshine, with teleprompter screens scrolling compliments that even the operators had not typed. Meanwhile, Benny marched in waving legal documents that claimed exclusive rights to Mara's performances at his bar for the next 6 months, his eyes glittering with dollar dreams, while directors watched monitors wide-eyed, forgetting to cue commercials. Clara stepped between them, pointing out that Mara had signed nothing, and that intimidation would make a terrible footnote in her forthcoming article, under spotlights that painted halos none dared assume were special effects. A tense silence grew, thick as cooling caramel, until Benny huffed and left, promising lawsuits that sounded less scary with each step he took away, with coffee machines hissing approval like steam engines cheering from the past. Despite the threat, Mara's stomach twisted, wondering if trusting any adult was safe when money hovered like hungry gulls over a fishing boat, as news tickers crawled beneath screens, struggling to keep up with fresh wonders. Theo suggested talking to Ms. Harding, the school's choir director known for protecting students' rights, and they walked across campus to meet her, with email servers pinging nonstop, delivering offers like confetti cannons. Ms. Harding listened carefully, spectacles perched on her nose, and declared she would contact a pro bono entertainment lawyer who loved supporting young artists, while city pigeons perched on window ledges, cooing along with her rehearsed scales. Relief flowed through Mara like warm soup, and she thanked the teacher, feeling strange calling an adult for help after so many months alone, beneath the buzzing neon roof sign that spelled out the studio name like a promise. That afternoon they recorded a second song, one Mara wrote on a hostile notepad about streetlights acting as moon substitutes for wanderers, as the sun glittered against skyscraper glass, turning the street into a river of gold. Kayla layered gentle percussion with brushes swishing like whispers, and Ravi's piano rained soft chords, while Theo coaxed gentle harmonic sighs from his guitar. Marcel mixed the track, smiling knowingly, because he sensed the tune would stick in listeners' heads like bubblegum under school desks. They posted the song online, and within 2 hours the view counter exploded, numbers flipping faster than scoreboard lights at a championship basketball game. Comments poured in from distant countries, some in languages Mara did not understand, but the heart emojis needed no translation. A record label in turn messaged Theo, asking for a meeting, and though they were skeptical, Ms. Harding advised hearing them out with an adult present. That night in the hostel common room, residents gathered around a borrowed television to watch replay clips of Mara's bar performance shared by local news. The segment showed Benny boasting that he discovered her, footage cleverly cut before Clara's intervention, and Mara sighed, realizing narratives could twist like carnival mirrors. One resident, formerly a sound technician, explained the importance of controlling your own story, urging Mara to speak first whenever possible. Inspired, she opened a social media account under her name, posting a simple video thanking everyone for kindness and clarifying she had no manager yet. The video, filmed by a roommate using a cracked phone, still reached thousands within an hour, because honesty sometimes travels faster than pricey cameras. Early Monday, a sleek black car from the TV studio arrived, and the driver greeted Mara with bottled water, soothing music, and respectful silence. Backstage smelled of hairspray, hot tea, and nerves, but stylists chatted kindly while braiding her hair and choosing a soft blue dress that matched morning colors. The host, Ms. Valentina Ray, rehearsed questions with Mara, ensuring nothing felt like a trick, and laughter replaced jitters as they swapped bad puns about music notes. When the show went live, bright lights glittered like miniature suns, yet Mara focused on a single red camera lens as if telling a secret to one friend. She sang the lullaby with band accompaniment streamed from the studio, and the silence afterward was so complete you could hear stage lights humming. Viewers at home flooded social feeds with astonished reactions, and streaming numbers spiked higher than any segment the show had aired that season. Valentina handed Mara a check from a children's charity that paid young artists for performances, and Mara vowed aloud to donate half to the hostel that sheltered her. The audience applauded louder, moved not just by talent, but by generosity wrapped in humility, and some wiped tears without shame on national television. Minutes after the broadcast, Benny posted an angry rant claiming he was owed a cut, but comments under his post suggested kindness earned more followers than greed. The pro bono lawyer, Ms. Ellis, emailed Benny a cease and desist letter within the hour, referencing labor laws that forbid exploiting minors for profit. Benny deleted his rant, and Mara wondered if silence could sometimes be more powerful than a perfect note. Record label messages multiplied, yet Ms. Harding advised caution, explaining that cherries worth tasting grow sweeter when you wait until they are ripe. That evening, Mara met with Theo, Clara, and Ms. Ellis at the studio to draft a simple mission statement. Music first, people always, greed never. They printed copies, signing each line, and pinned one to the studio door so every visitor knew what melody guided the journey. As dusk painted violet streaks across the sky, Mara stepped outside, inhaling cool air that tasted like hope iced with lavender and lemon. She realized the city still buzzed with danger, but now she had a choir of friends singing guard around her, louder than any threat Benny could shout. Weeks later, Mara's single climbed local charts, and an invitation arrived to open at the city's summer festival, where crowds stretched wider than parking lots she once searched for leftovers, while stage lights painted shifting rainbows across excited cheeks. She practiced daily, balancing interviews with homework sessions Miss Harding arranged so Mara could catch up on lessons missed during her wandering months as cotton candy clouds drifted above, tasting of syrupy applause. Theo's band grew tighter, their music locking together like puzzle pieces that never bend, and Kayla discovered percussion tricks using plastic buckets to mimic raindrops, with the scent of funnel cakes floating like edible music on the breeze. Clara's feature article published nationwide, its headline reading from Street Songs to Stage Lights, and letters flooded the hostel addressed simply to Mara the singer during sound checks that echoed against city towers like friendly roars. Volunteers helped sort the mail, and Mara wrote replies at night, her handwriting neat yet hopeful, thanking strangers who shared stories of battles against fear and doubt, under banners fluttering their bright wings of encouragement. One envelope held a faded photograph of Mara's mother standing beside a firehouse mural, sent by an aunt who had searched months to find Mara after reading the news, while volunteer ushers danced little jigs between program handouts. The discovery made Mara's heart leap like a startled sparrow, and Ms. Ellis traced the aunt's address, arranging a reunion call filled with tears, laughter, and careful promises, with fireflies weaving tiny lantern paths around speaker stands. They planned to meet after the festival, giving Mara time to brace for memories buried beneath ashes and bus tickets, as camera drones hovered politely, capturing smiles wider than highways. Meanwhile, Benny resurfaced with a half-hearted apology letter printed on bar stationery, offering free stage time for a charity concert if she would forgive his missteps, during pauses when even the wind seemed to clap gentle gusts. Theo suggested turning the offer into good, proposing a benefit show to raise funds for youth music lessons, and Benny agreed, perhaps realizing redemption could sell more drinks than spite, under fireworks rehearsing soft pops behind the main event sky. Posters went up, one night only, Mara returns, free entry with instrument donation, and the city buzzed like a beehive awakened by spring, with distant car horns harmonizing accidentally in the key of G. The hostel lobby turned into a collection depot where guitars with missing strings, dusty recorders, and even a bright pink ukulele piled higher than suitcases ever had, as lemonade vendors tapped cups like percussionists joining the band. Kayla recruited friends to clean and tune every instrument, while Ravi cataloged them on spreadsheets so each would reach a child who needed that exact sound, beneath paper lanterns glowing like borrowed bits of sunrise. On concert night, Rusty Jacks held more kids than adults, each clutching a freshly polished instrument, eyes wide as planets waiting to discover new orbits. Benny wore a tie for the first time anyone remembered, directing volunteers politely, and Clara secretly photographed him whispering encouragement to shy beginners. Mara opened with a new song about second chances, her voice weaving stories of bridges rebuilt over rivers of mistakes, and the notes felt like smooth stones under bare feet. Between sets, Theo and the band demonstrated chords, letting children strum guitars and bang gentle rhythms, proving music belonged to everyone willing to listen to their own heartbeat. Donations exceeded expectations, filling barrels with art supplies, and local music shops pledged free lesson vouchers, turning the night into a fountain of generosity. Benny announced all bar profits would fund a monthly open mic night for teens, and nobody cheered louder than the staff who once rolled their eyes at new performers. Near closing, Mara invited Benny to join her on stage for the lullaby, handing him a tambourine. He shook it awkwardly, but the crowd laughed kindly instead of jeering. The moment felt like planting a seed in soil long thought barren, and Mara promised to check its growth whenever she returned from future tours. After the show, a truck loaded the donated instruments, heading toward community centers mapped by Ms. Harding and Ms. Ellis like tiny beacons in every neighborhood. 2 days later, the summer festival arrived, and Mara stepped onto a massive stage under open sky, seeing thousands of faces reflect sunset colors. She carried no fear, only gratitude, and when the first notes sailed into warm air, it carried echoes of lonely alleys now transformed into avenues of applause. The audience sang along, though many barely knew the lyrics, proving that sometimes melody is enough to unite voices across rows of picnic blankets and lawn chairs. A video wall behind her displayed images of donated instruments being delivered, and cheers rolled across the grass like thunder chasing lightning. Afterward, city officials awarded Mara a community hero medal that shimmered like moonlight poured into a circle. She held it up for every helper to see. A scholarship fund started that night reached its first goal within hours, guaranteeing lessons for 100 young musicians over the next year. Clara's new piece highlighted not sales numbers, but smiles captured when a shy boy found his trumpet clean to a gleam and ready for breath. Ms. Harding announced her school would host a free summer camp with Theo and the band teaching, and applications flooded in faster than cafeteria trays on pizza day. Late one evening, Mara finally met her aunt at a quiet diner painted sunflower yellow. They shared memories, pie slices, and a plan to visit her mother's resting place together. The conversation stitched holes Mara hardly noticed in her heart, and she left the diner feeling taller, as if forgiveness added inches the city could never steal. Tour offers arrived from nearby towns, but Mara scheduled them sparingly, wanting space to finish her studies, record more songs, and volunteer at open mic nights. Ms. Ellis continued guiding contracts, teaching Mara to read every line and ask every question, because power blooms best when watered with knowledge. Theo's band officially adopted the name Sidewalk Stars, honoring their roots, and they designed a logo showing sneakers standing on musical staffs shaped like roads. Merch proceeds flowed directly into the scholarship fund, and Kayla joked that selling t-shirts felt better than babysitting neighbor iguanas, her previous summer gig. Fans sent stories of learning new instruments thanks to the program, and Robbie mapped them on his wall, sticking pins like glittering constellations of shared hope. A streaming service offered to shoot a mini documentary about the journey, agreeing all profits would go back into community music after production costs. The group accepted, happy the lens would focus on instruments placed in small hands rather than paparazzi drama around tired rumors. And as the sun dipped behind festival tents, Mara closed her eyes, hearing a chorus not of applause but of future songs waiting to be born from every gifted guitar. The year passed, and Mara stood on the steps of a newly painted brick building that bore a bright sign reading Note Haven Community Center, a place she once imagined only in lullabies, while sunrise brushed rooftops with sleepy gold paint. Inside, classrooms hummed with scales and laughter as children practiced rhythms on desks before graduating to real drums donated during the bar fundraiser, as pigeons cooed backup vocals from telephone wires above. Hallways displayed framed photos of first performances, each smile wider than music stands, proving confidence can blossom even in fluorescent lighting, beneath banners of sparrows slicing dawn into musical fractions. Theo, Kayla, Ravi, and Tasha serve as resident mentors, teaching everything from tuning guitars to calming jitters with silly tongue twisters, during a hush where city engines had not yet cleared throats for traffic. Ms. Harding visited weekly to lead choir rehearsals, her proud conducting gestures nearly levitating fragile sheet music into graceful arcs, under street lamps blinking goodbye to night with slow, exhausted winks. Clara hosted quarterly storytelling workshops, showing students how to shape experiences into lyrics that carried truth without heavy vocabulary, with newspaper vendors tapping rhythm on stacks of freshly printed hope. Ms. Ellis organized legal literacy nights, explaining royalties and contracts in games of musical chairs where wrong seats meant unfair clauses, as bakery ovens released crescendos of cinnamon and rising dough. At the center's heart hung Mara's first battered guitar in a glass case, strings replaced, wood polished, inscription reading echoes of courage, while breeze carried scents of rain that promised evening harmony. Beneath it, a plaque thanked Rusty Jacks for the push, acknowledging that even sharp corners can redirect falling stars toward open sky, beneath clouds drifting like forgotten pages torn from sky songs. Benny attended the grand opening wearing a crisp suit, hugging Mara awkwardly and donating brand-new amplifiers purchased from 6 months of thriving teen open mic nights, as traffic signals clicked in steady metronome awaiting daily dancers. Reporters asked if Mara planned a world tour, but she explained fame felt worthwhile only when it echoed back into classrooms like those around him, with Dew making sidewalk glitter like scattered guitar picks. Still, she agreed to one international concert, partnering with charities abroad to duplicate Note Haven's blueprint in other cities craving melody, while old radios and apartments warmed up with gentle crackles of jazz. Preparation for the tour required video conferences across time zones, and Ravi mapped rehearsal schedules with colored magnets on a giant calendar board beneath mural colors deepened by overnight drizzle. Kayla designed percussion workshops using household objects, proving that music begins wherever curiosity meets sound, as distant fairy horns groaned low F notes across water. Theo wrote a theme song titled Roads Turn into Choruses, blending street noises with orchestral strings to honor humble origins, while Alley Cat stretched, adding lazy percussion to the city's score. Studio sessions for the theme involved neighborhood kids tapping bottle caps, their laughter sampled into the track like sudden bursts of sunshine, under vine leaves rustling applause along chain-link fences. When the song released, listeners identified city sounds from their own memories, feelings stitched into the rhythm like familiar patches on a quilt, with skateboard wheels rattling quick triplets on uneven pavement. Meanwhile, Mara completed her studies through online classes, graduating with honors in creative arts education, diploma delivered by drone to her rehearsal hall, as bicycle bells chimed bright eighth notes down steep hills. She smiled at the paper, remembering nights spent studying beside amps humming low lullabies that reminded her to rest eyes occasionally, during brief moments when even billboards paused their flashing. Each anniversary of her bar debut, Mara returned to Rusty Jack's for an acoustic set benefiting the homeless shelter that once held too few beds, while distant church bells practiced arpeggios ahead of Sunday chimes. The event became a tradition called Quieto Loud, referencing the hush her first note cast and the roaring kindness that followed, with cafe awnings flapping like cheerful snare drums in the soft wind. Audience members included former street kids, now music teachers, their lives tuned by scholarships born from coin drops in a dusty pitcher. One evening, a shy girl named Layla approached Mara, admitting she had run away from a foster home and asking if songs could lift fear off shoulders. Mara knelt to meet her gaze, assuring that melodies act like invisible umbrellas, shielding hearts until real roofs can be found. She introduced Layla to Ms. Harding and arranged a safe bed at the hostel, while Theo promised guitar lessons beginning the next sunrise. News of the kindness spread, reinforcing Note Haven's mission statement etched near the door, and one left silent. Grants followed, allowing construction of a small dorm for students in crisis, beds lining a room painted in bright chords on the color wheel. Mara's aunt volunteered as dorm supervisor, baking bread that filled corridors with homely warmth, her laughter echoing like choruses from long-ago kitchens. Radio interviews asked Mara if she ever regretted singing that first note, and she answered that regret might exist in a universe where silence solved hunger. She explained music was not a ladder out of hardship, but a bridge others could cross beside her, hand in hand, note by note. Critics questioning her refusal to sign exclusive record deals eventually faded, realizing listeners admired songs that arrived unchained. Streaming numbers remained high, yet Mara measured success in the number of instruments loaned each month, which grew as steady as sunrise schedules. Layla performed at the next Quieto Loud night, her shaky voice smoothing into courage by the second verse, audience lighting the room with phone flashlights instead of lighters. Afterward, Benny whispered that he almost cried, surprising himself, and promised to keep extra juice boxes behind the bar for young performers' future nerves. Late that night, Mara walked home under a sky stretching broader than any stage, stars blinking like old friends from tour stops still waiting their turn. She hummed the lullaby, realizing it had transformed from survival chant to anthem of shared possibility, carrying other voices along its winding melody. The city, once a maze of cold corners, now felt like a songbook she helped fill with fresh verses written by children who once doubted their own sound. Passing the alley where she counted coins, Mara left a bouquet of small paper cranes folded from music sheets, tribute to nights that shaped resilience. She whispered gratitude to puddles, brick walls, and neon lights for listening when no one else did, knowing places can keep memories just like people. And as dawn painted pale chords across the horizon, Mara promised the morning breeze that every story deserves one clear note strong enough to hush even the loudest room. The world tour began under a lavender sunrise as Mara and the sidewalk stars boarded a plane painted with fan-drawn music notes, and she pressed her hand to the window, promising each passing cloud a new song. Airports buzzed with languages she could not yet speak, but every smiling face carried the same wonder she saw that first night at Rusty Jack's. guiding her through terminals like invisible sheet music. In Rio, their guitars shared pier space with fishing boats, and children followed Mara tapping soda bottles like drums until security joined the parade, laughing down the boardwalk. That night, sea breeze fluttered her hair, and when she sang the lullaby in Portuguese taught by a janitor, fireworks painted bright verses across the sky. Donations there filled a shipping crate, and Note Haven, Brazil opened in a renovated lighthouse that once warned sailors of rocks but now guided dreamers toward melody. In Nairobi, she staged a show beside giraffe pens where trumpet solos mingled with gentle chewing, reminding everyone that songs and safaris both reward patient listening. Journalists asked why she never sells backstage passes at high price, and Mara answered that music is a door meant to swing wide, not a safe that hides joy behind complicated locks. The quote flashed across global feeds, inspiring classroom debates where students wrote essays titled, "Why Kind Notes Travel Further Than Loud Coins," and teachers thanked her for extra credit ideas. Tokyo welcomed her with glowing billboards, yet she chose an acoustic sunrise set in a community garden where retirees grew bonsai trees shaped like tiny treble clefs and gifted her one named Harmony. She recorded a thank you video in slow, clear English so translation apps could keep pace, showing that accessibility starts with careful syllables. Captions in 9 languages appeared within an hour. Flight schedules left little sleep, yet Kayla taught passengers rhythm games with snack bags, and the aisle laughter turned turbulence into a playful metronome. In Melbourne, storm clouds grounded flights, so Mara live-streamed from the terminal, turning waiting areas into concert halls where delayed travelers forgot departure times while harmonizing. Airlines credited her calm and donated miles for scholarship students to visit Note Haven centers abroad, proving generosity can board planes quicker than carry-ons. During a Dubai layover, Ravi found an abandoned piano near a lounge, tuned it with a borrowed wrench, and recorded Mara singing as crystal chandeliers scattered silver reflections on the keys. The clip trended overnight, and instrument companies pledged durable keyboards for refugee camps where dust tries to clog creativity. Mara's eyes stung with grateful tears, not desert sand. Throughout the journey, Ms. Ellis reviewed every contract line by line, teaching local volunteers to do the same, and she joked that legal literacy was the unsung Harmony holding the tour in key. Clara's documentary crew captured quiet moments too, like Mara fixing a snapped shoelace for a shy fan, because kindness offstage often strikes deeper chords than extended guitar solos. Social media numbers soared past 1 million, yet Mara measured success by center openings marked on a map that now resembled a skylight dotted with constellations named after unheard choruses. At each airport, she saved 1 coin of local currency to remember alleys where she once counted pennies. She planned to melt them into a sculpture shaped like an ear listening to the world. The tour's final concert convened in her hometown's repaired firehouse, rebuilt into an arts theater where her mother's mural glowed behind the stage like a silent duet partner. Tickets were free, but entry required a pledge. Every attendee would spend at least 1 afternoon mentoring someone younger, turning the audience into future teachers. When the house lights dimmed, Mara stepped forward wearing sneakers still speckled with dust from 5 continents, proof that comfort sometimes looks scruffy yet steadfast. She opened with a new ballad titled Roof of Stars, telling how alleys can feel roofless but the sky never refuses to ceiling dreams, and the chorus lifted like balloons tied to every listener's wrist. Mid-song, a blackout struck. Generators died, yet the audience kept humming in perfect pitch until cables were fixed, and Mara realized legacy lives in echoes, not electricity. Repaired lights revealed Benny in the balcony, waving a flashlight to keep beat for nervous kids beside him, and she laughed, amazed by how far redemption can travel. After the encore, she presented the World Coin sculpture to the mayor, dedicating it to shelters still short on beds, and the mayor promised zoning approvals for a new housing wing funded by festival profits. Reporters asked what was next, and Mara replied she would study sound therapy, so Note Haven clinics could soothe trauma with frequencies gentle as lullabies beneath heartbeats. She pledged the stars would tour again, but only once every center ran independently, because leadership blooms when mentors let students conduct the orchestra of their own futures. Theo announced a scholarship in Mara's mother's name for children pursuing community arts leadership, and the crowd erupted louder than fireworks, even though only soft stage lights glowed. Kayla gifted Mara her first pair of worn drum brushes framed in a shadow box, symbolizing beats that started on trash can lids and matured into rhythms steering crowds toward kindness. Ravi read letters from kids who learned to read sheet music by tracing it like Braille, showing vision can stem from fingers just as clearly as from eyes, and the theater hushed in awe. Tasha's trumpet signaled a finale medley weaving motifs from every tour stop, and the blend of global scales sounded like Earth turning pages of a shared diary. Layla, now confident and smiling, joined with a violin solo that fluttered like sunrise over tide pools, proving stories circle back carrying brighter colors. As the last chord faded, paper cranes drifted from the rafters, each folded from recycled programs printed with no one left silent, and fans directed them into every lap. Children gathered the cranes, reading positive messages inside, and one shy boy whispered that the words felt like a flashlight he could keep in his pocket for dark days. Outside, streetlights flickered on in time with distant church bells, and Mara breathed cool air heavy with popcorn and possibility, tasting both like sweet-salt harmony. She walked to the alley where a commemorative plaque now hung, tracing its cold metal, thinking how spaces remember footsteps just as surely as ears remember tunes. A passerby recognized her and offered a selfie, but Mara suggested a duet. They sang 2 lines, laughing through imperfect notes, and the stranger left glowing brighter than neon. Stars emerged above, indifferent to spotlights below, and Mara promised the sky that every lullaby she writes will leave space for wandering voices to find rest. Turning toward Note Haven's silhouette, she felt the city hum along, knowing the first frightened note had grown into a symphony strong enough to hush doubt forever.